All right, perfect. Looks like we are live on stage now. I'm very happy to be part here of this Success and the Future of Work Summit that Additive is organizing. So thanks for that. Very much looking forward to this session now. Let me maybe introduce myself first, and then I give you a little bit of context what this keynote will be about. So my name is Nick. I'm from Germany. I'm currently dialing in from Cologne. I have a background in finance and decided 3 years ago to start my own journey, my own company with peopleIX, where we're focusing on people analytics and automation. So in the end, we provide a software solution to connect to all the different HR systems that are in the organizations and want to help the HR teams on the analytics and the automation part. And I want to use this keynote to share all of the insights that I got through the journey and with all the customer interactions on how AI is really hitting us in HR and how we should think about building the teams around people, data, and AI, and what effect it actually has on the HR tech stack of the future to make the best use of AI. So this is in the end what this keynote will be about. So it's all about from data to action. So I would say, let's jump in. As always, I really like to start with a meme first to kind of reflect the current situation that we are in. And we have been to several fair trades and also had tons of discussions, etc. And right now it really feels like, okay, everyone in HR is talking about AI. And what I often hear like left and right is, hey, we have now AI that is writing our job description, or hey, AI is helping me to summarize performance reviews, or for example, having agents or AI implemented for the policies, for the questionnaires, etc. This is something that pops up quite recently. And I really like have a different point of view, because what we are actually doing here is we try to automate the outputs, but not really improving how we are doing HR management for our organizations. So in the end, I get it. So we are saving a lot of time and it's helping us to detect patterns and being faster, etc. But it's not really changing on how we add value to the organizations here. And I also want to walk you through our mental model on how we think about, hey, what is a good structure that you should set up in your organization to make AI work for you, not only to save the time, but in the end to improve the decisions. So to summarize it a little bit, and maybe that's an observations also you guys are having, is that now every kind of HR system has this magic stick button somewhere implemented in their solution. Some of them call it the co-pilot, or you can write the summaries, or it's an assistant that should help you in some of the processes, etc. But what I really find quite interesting is even though that AI is now a topic for already like 2-3 years, the work still looks the same and the problems remain the same. So we are really wondering on, okay, what is actually holding us back here to leverage this great technology that we have at hand to save the time, but in the end also improve how we add value to the organization. Now, the quite interesting interesting report I came across in February is something that Anthropic released. And what they did is they were measuring and monitoring all the tool calls on the different LLMs that they are having in use. So, for example, Claude, etc. And they tried to map all the different tool calls to the domains that we are seeing in the organizations. And here in this case, what I show you here in the graph are the top 5 domains who are actually running agents or making a lot of tool calls. And we see at the very top, obviously, software engineering. So this seems to be a problem that is now solved. Or if you listen to some podcasts where everyone is saying, okay, engineers are not actually write code anymore, it completely changed the domain of programming and engineering software. And then the followers we see here is marketing, sales, finance, and afterwards data analysis and BI. What I found the most interesting part here is what is not in the report, and this is that HR was not even on the list. So we are always wondering, okay, what is holding us back here to really leverage this technology? And out of all the tool calls that are currently made, all the LLMs and the tokens that are used, it's just a very, very minor portion that is dedicated to HR, so that it didn't even made it here on the list. So I tried to dig a little bit deeper into that and was wondering, okay, why is it that case that it has such a huge adoption in, for example, software engineering, marketing, sales, and finance? And for me, there are two reasons for that. One is obviously you have early adopters in the tech domains like software engineering. So when new technology comes out, it's always a great starting point for them to test it out, playing around, etc. But what is more importantly to me, and the pattern that I see, is that the top 5 domains that you see here, these are the ones who invested heavily in a great data infrastructure in the last couple of years. So if I add an agent right now to software engineering, it's very easy for me to give it the entire context because I have my entire code base there. I have a very well documented stuff. The processes, everything is digitalized and accessible. So it makes me very easy to give AI the entire context that is actually needed to deliver great output. The same is, for example, with marketing or with sales, where we were very, very data-driven already 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where we invested heavily in this data infrastructure, etc. And we now see that they are really catching up on that, and AI agent can deliver great services to them, because here it's also quite easy for them to get the entire context because we have it in a well-structured format, which is actually the most important ingredient to get the most value out of that. And that's for me also one part here that in HR, we really missed out on this opportunity in the past to invest in this kind of infrastructure, to have this context layer, so that it now feels a little bit weird to work with AI and not really seeing the value out of that. But we are coming to this also in a bit. So now the last meme that I have here, but this is also a reflection of a lot of discussions that I'm currently having, that in the end, HR teams are only very, very few seeing the real impact of that. And a lot of the conversations are all about, okay, HR leaders or HR team members are really screaming at the AI and saying, ah, shit, I don't want to use it, it's bad, it did this and this mistake, etc. If the AI could reply, he or she would just say, yeah, come on, guys, this is actually the context that you are giving. It's the best that I can work with that. So we need to fix that part of the equation to really make it work. So in the end, it's not that the technology is behind and not delivering the great value. It's right now in HR, it feels like an infrastructure problem that we are having at hand to not really catch up with this new technology. So to summarize now the kind of first part, I think every one of us is going through this kind of roller coaster with the AI technology. Sometimes it feels exciting, but then in the end, if we try to implement it also in production, in our domains, in our processes, it really feels like babysitting. It feels a little bit disappointing, not that we really actually grips the value out of that. And it's not because the technology is weak, but it's in the end because we starve it out. We do not give it the right context here. So it's the kind of infrastructure that we are currently missing in HR to make good use of the AI agents. Now let's go into what is in the end our core problem that we are having in HR. And based on, I'm not sure, like 200, 300 discussions that I had in the last couple of months and years, it all always comes down to the data problem that we are having in HR. So it's multidimensional. So especially with larger organizations, we have several entities across various countries. We have different sets of data that we need to handle with, from time tracking. We have applicant data, we have payroll data, employee engagement, performance reviews. It's all like our very own limited data models that we are having. And then we are running it in several systems, because often it's the case that one suite is not very good in the entire employee life cycle to manage it well. So in the end, what we are having is we have an ATS system, we have an HRIS system, we have our engagement and performance system. So it's very disconnected, it's all fragmented. And now what we are currently doing is we just sprinkle AI on top of this very isolated and fragmented context. But this is in the end why we are not getting the very much value out of it, because it's missing the entire context from our organization, from the entire employee life cycle. So in the end, it's a huge data problem that we are currently having in HR. But we are not only here to show the problems, but also kind of solutions. So yeah, as I said, right now we have the broken data, and we just judging AI for it to not be great at it, but it's in the end our mistake to not provide the right context here. So we don't increase the intelligence. What we are currently doing is we are adding a lot of babies to our organization that we need to babysit, and it just multiplies the noise that we are having by having a few time savings, obviously. So in the end, as I said also in the very beginning, we are currently focusing on the wrong things to automate. So I see a lot of use cases around better writing job descriptions, summarizing the reviews, or answering the policy questions. But we have a transformational technology at hand, and we are currently having an approach where we want to make certain processes that we ran in the past 10 years just slightly better. So what we want to look into is, okay, what's the kind of game-changing AI? So how can we actually work with the agents, etc.? So we need to focus on the right things, and this is more on the infrastructure level and not on top of maybe the broken processes and data that we are currently having in place. So in our thinking, we can divide it a little bit into these two categories. So on the one hand, we have the tactical AI, and on the other hand, we have the strategic AI. And based on my discussions and observations, I see a lot of people more on the tactical AI level, where we are always talking about automating tasks, saving time, being better in writing, or whatever it is. But how we think about it, it's more on the strategic AI part, what we want to enable. So we want to identify the patterns, something that we haven't been able to see before. We want to detect risks that are really hurting our business, where we need to act proactively. And in the end, we want to guide decisions with the help of HR to deliver way more value to the business. And that's where we think a lot of value lies in this new technology of AI, and not really on the very technical part. So it's more about the thinking process, the value adding of HR, and not in the end of drafting better emails or better communication. So now I want to run you a little bit through the mental model and also the steps in the HR tech stack on how we think about to best set it up now in the era of AI. And the very foundational part, it's also related to the very first problem that we identified. It's the data problem that we are having. And data in the context of AI means having context for the AI to really execute on. So this is in the end how we can improve significantly the capabilities of AI, not just working on the prompts, not waiting for an upgrade of the models, etc., because it will not solve our problems in the very end. We are responsible to deliver this context layer for the agents to really deliver the value here. And this is why we need to work on our data infrastructure in the end. But also here, data is only one piece of the equation, and it's still very static and passive. And if I would just add AI on top of that, I can happily answer a lot of questions like what has been the sick rate of my sales department last quarter, or how is the trend in our attrition rate running, etc. But it's not really driving the action. And action is something which is crucial in HR, because here we can deliver a lot of value. So let's move on to the second steps on how we turn now the data into the signals. And signals is something which is super important, because signals are crucial for the AI to understand when to act. And we first discussed on the data part that it's quite passive and static, and we have huge data tables and so on and so forth. But in the end, what is more interesting to us is grabbing and getting all the signals across our organization. If, I don't know, someone has been hired, if the sick rate is moving up, if the attrition rate is going down or up, if someone leaves the organization. So this is really a data point that turned into a signal, and something which requires action from HR. And this is how we should also think about it, like identifying all the different signals across our employee life cycle, and then mentally think it through, okay, what is the best process that we should run if, for example, the sick rate rises on that production side? What effect does it has on the capacity planning? What if the attrition rate goes up at one point in the organization? What impact it has on recruiting, on compensation, etc. So it's all these kinds of signals that we need to get out of the data. And AI is also actually very good at it, to help you here to turn these raw inputs, the raw data, into the signal part. And once now we have a great signal layer in place, then it's all about the reasoning. And this is something where we go now into. So we have now the data who can answer our questions, and now we have the signal, so we know when we should act. And now, as a third step, and I know this looks super complicated, but it's all about the reasoning. And what we understand here with reasoning and how AI is working here on top of our connected and cleaned up data is really like working as a data analyst on top of that, to, in the end, decide, okay, what is the best action to take? What is also the business goals that you are having? And how can I guide the kind of decisions? So you remember from the very first part of our keynote, this is actually where we are, where we want to head to be way better in decision making, way better in guiding the business on things that we actually need to do. So in the end, reasoning is something, and we can walk it through here. It's really the work of the data analyst. So you first need to look very deeply into the data and also understand it from a statistical point of view. Is it a pattern that we see? Is it more like an outlier where you have some employees, for example, who has been sick for 30 days, who is responsible for the entire trend, etc.? So we need to get the grasp out of that. Okay, what is this change about? Then we need to see the correlations, but also the root causes behind that. So sick dates, it's often a signal that we get, but it could be that we have a problem in engagement. It could be that we have problems with our workload. It could be that we have problems in recruiting by not filling up the open positions. It could be that we have some problems with our supervisors, etc. And AI is actually able to do this on top of our data structure, because it understands the relationships between the data points, and also can identify the root causes here quite good for us in a way. And then not only looking into the root causes, but going on into the business impact, because that decides what's the urgency, what's the priority, and what actions we actually need to take on top of that. So for example, if we look into the spike of the sick rates in one of our production site, it could have an immediate impact on the production, and therefore has a revenue impact, for example, for our business. And AI is also here able to understand this and evaluate this kind of business impact, and can help us with fixing these capacity issues, and then understand, hey, is it something we can actually do by having more people in place and recruit for them? Are there other people from other teams that we can shift to this production side to catch up with the capacity issue that we are having? All these kinds of things can be already evaluated by the AI here. And then in the end, it can make us a very structured plan on, hey, here are some actions that you can take for the short term, for the midterm, for the long term. This is like the potential impact that it has on your very important metrics. And then also gives you, in a very explainable and transparent way, hey, this is how I derive to this kind of action, so that we are sitting on top of that and can actually validate, hey, this is an action our agent should actually take, or is it something where I need to jump in as a human because AI has some, I don't know, wrong context or wrong things in mind, so that we actually need to jump in. So reasoning is really a crucial part to get things into the right direction, and really concentrating on the actions that have the most impact on our business. And now the last part, now that we have a well-guided reasoning from the AI, so we have the data, we identified the signal, and now the AI run through it and has some action plans for us. We also want to be executing on that, and in the best case, AI can actually manage this for us as well. So it's super important that we investing in a kind of infrastructure where agents are also now able to take on several actions. So for example, staying in this example with the sick rate, it might be just a notification to the production site manager, or a proactive notification to the head of HR, or maybe pinging recruiting to open up several new positions because we are in a crunch here, etc. So really acting on that. And a lot in HR is also just about distributing information, which means, okay, who should be notified at what point in time with what information via what channel. So it can be Slack, it can be Teams, it can be email, whatever it is, but AI is also able to act on that. So we need to design our infrastructure for that and say, hey, if you identified this, you have this kind of reasoning, then this kind of notification should automatically go out to the people that that we need to notify on top of that. So to maybe sum it up in one slide, and this is also what we are focusing on peopleIX, is that we help with turning from the data into the action and providing all the different layers for you, also with the help of AI. So on the one hand, we know there are several different systems in the organizations. We can all connect them to a unified people data model, so that you have a well-structured data layer in place. And then also with the mental model that I explained to you, we turn this into the signals, we can run the reasoning for you, and then you can actually just plug and play what tools you are actually working on. Is it the Slack? Is it Teams? Is it email? So that you can also start to execute on top of that. And then we have AI that is really helping us to deliver value, and not only saving time. I mean, the time saving here is pretty obvious. So if we would all do this manually, it easily takes up or takes busy several people in our department. But here we can actually make agents do the work for you, which is pretty cool. And we are all be judged on, in the end, and the execution. And that's why it's important to look also AI from that kind of perspective, so that we get more and more buy-in also from the business, from the management, etc. So yeah, to also show you the kind of shift here that we are seeing. So in the first part of the keynote, we had the kind of reactive HR, where currently a lot of us are still struggling with. We know that we can ask co-pilots, just putting some questions, getting the answer to that. Of course, we can build and analyze dashboards, etc. But it doesn't feel like it's relieving us with a lot of work that is be done, and also adding a lot of value to us. So in the agentic HR, how we envision it and how we see it also with customers is that you are now on top of your organization because you proactively get all the signals on what is happening in your organization. You get a very well-structured reasoning from the AI on what could be the actions that you could take on top of that. And then you just steer the actions on top of that and say, hey, this is important. This is something we need to act on. Can you please share this with our managers, with our business lead, within our HR department, whatever it is. So this also brings me like to the last key point. So what does it make now with the role of HR? And we're seeing a huge shift from the operator role, where we have been in control of the process. We were running it. We were getting the insights out of the data, notifying all the people, etc. We are becoming now more the architects of the system behind that, right? So we really need to grow up, think of the entire employee life cycle. We need to understand what signals we need to capture, how AI should reasoning in our organization, what are maybe also specifics in our industry, in our organizational size, etc. This is all the context or the thoughts that we need to put in so that we can structure the agents who are then working on top of us. So that in the end, it's all about the value add that we are bringing, and not being in this operator role and just being in the, or having the goal of being more efficient with less budget, etc. But we are becoming now the architects of the organization, which is, I think, a pretty cool shift that we are currently seeing. Yeah, just some practical guidance. What I would do if I need to start to act on that tomorrow, and it always starts with the goals that we are having on the employee life cycle. I mean, all of you have a very great gut feeling on what is currently working on in your organization, what's the pulse of that, also based maybe on the surveys that you are doing and all these kinds of things. So really understanding, okay, what are the greater goals that we need to achieve and how does it fit in our employee life cycle? Because the better the guidance and the structure we are giving here to the AI agents, the better they become in the reasoning and helping us really to deliver on the goals that we set for ourselves. And then we need to go through the different layers that we just explained. It's like defining these critical events, how to best turn them into the signals. Is it, for example, crucial for us if sick rate goes up by 1% point, or should I only be notified by plus 5% points? What are the critical roles in our organizations? I want to be notified if a critical role is not filled in time, or is maybe someone is exiting our organization, etc. But this is something which is often very specific to your organization. And putting these thoughts here in a structured way is helping you a lot to then giving the best context to the AI and let them work for you. Yeah, with that, I mean, in the end, it's not replacing. I know that a lot of people are currently looking into that. So just like efficiency, and we are saving a lot of time in HR. But what we see is it gives us a huge leverage by adding or improving the value add that we are bringing to the business. And if we take now the new technology and not putting it on the approach to just improve our existing processes, but thinking about how we can add way more value in a more scalable way in our organization, this is what actually enhances HR in the organization and is giving us the value add and also the take at the seat that we are currently seeing. All right. Thank you so much. It has been really a pleasure. I think it's also right on time. I try to also have some or save some time for the very end for your Q&A. But maybe yeah, we can take 1 or 2 questions. I'm not sure how tight it is with the deadline, but thanks a lot. It has been really a pleasure to be here. Okay, I think we are already done, so I think that it's moving on now to the next session. But I tried to find a way to also answer the questions that you put in the Q&A. So we'll give you an update on that.